All right, welcome back. Okay, resuming from where we left off, right there in the middle of page 16. As you get to know the people you support, you will learn their daily routines and preferences. Each day that you work with them is an opportunity to support their choices about how they receive care and live their lives, and an opportunity to get to know them a little bit better. You could work with someone for years and not fully know them. I mean, you have friends and family members that you've known for years, and they still surprise you, don't they? They still tell you things and they reveal that they're into things that you had no idea that they were into. I mean, even your married partner, you could find out something new about them that you didn't know. My wife, I mean, I've been married to my wife for over 20 years now, and she's constantly surprising me with stories from her childhood and things that she likes and things she wants to do and hopes and dreams that we've just never discussed. So, yeah, you'll always be learning something new as long as you're willing and open minded to ask. An example: Mrs. Cortez likes to dress for supper, and she's very particular about her appearance. The blouse that she would like to wear tonight is wrinkled, and she'd like you to iron it, but she's already running very late. Which is the more person centered approach? What do you think? Should we let her know that there's not enough time and ask her to perhaps select another blouse? Or offer to iron her blouse, but let her know that it's probably going to make her very late to supper? Option B. That's right. Now, is option A wrong? No, it's not wrong. But option B is the better option. This kind of segues into something I want to make sure I'm bringing up to you, which is when you take your big test later on, you're going to face questions that there's going to be more than one right answer. And it's not going to be about choosing the correct answer, because there'll be a couple correct answers sometimes. It's about choosing the most correct answer of the two. So be knowledgeable about that as we go through these questions, that sometimes both answers or all four answers to the question could be in some form or fashion correct. But it's about picking the most correct answer in the context that you're supposed to be choosing it. So we say, yeah, Mrs. Cortez, I understand you want your blouse to be ironed, and I can do that for you if you'd like, but I do have to let you know, if we do stop and iron the blouse, it's going to take me about 5 to 10 minutes, and it could make you really late for dinner. Your family's expecting you. I'll leave it up to you. And then you put the choice in her hands. Ultimately, it's good to give them choice and give them choices about things. And sometimes, they'll make the selfish choice or the wrong choice, right? Is there a wrong choice? Well, sometimes. But they'll make the incorrect choice. And is there really any harm done if she's late to dinner? Is it the end of the world? No, it's not. The important thing is we gave her a choice about something that really didn't have any sort of earth-shaking consequences to whether or not it was a good or bad choice. So, follow your heart on those things. Top of the page now, promoting self-determination, self-direction, autonomy, and independence. So many big words. As a caregiver, you support your client's ability to be independent. Each client will need different kinds and levels of support in their daily life, and in some cases, the client will need you to do everything for them. They'll want to help. In most cases, they're going to want to participate and do as much as they can. And as caregivers, it's our job to encourage our clients to do as much as they can. Encourage independence. Or find their baseline or their level to which they're accustomed to doing a task, and maybe help them to elevate it up to the next level. Maybe they can't button their buttons, but maybe they can pull their shirt on over their head. And they're not doing that, but they can do it. And you can show them how, and you can help them to do it. So that's kind of like what you're doing as a caregiver too, is you're helping them to find new levels to their baseline of what they're accustomed to doing, and just getting slightly better as you go. Don't make big changes. That's just a recipe for disaster. Don't push something big. They're not used to going for walks. Don't be like, let's go for a 3-mile walk around Green Lake Park. That's a little too much. But maybe let's go for a walk around the block, or let's walk and go to the mailbox and back. That's baby steps. That's what you want to be taking. Okay? Every client will need different kinds and levels of support in their life. However, in many cases, you'll be providing just as much assistance as they need to complete the task themselves. So do what's needed to get the task done. If they are unable to brush their teeth effectively, then you can go so far as to hold the toothbrush for them, bring it to their mouth, and then help them to move it. or steady or guide their hand as they're moving back and forth and up and down and their circular motions and whatnot. I mean, you do as much as is necessary while at the same time always searching for a way to help them to gain more independence while you practice that particular skill. So much to learn. All right, think about it. Consider the differences between buttoning someone's shirt for someone and helping to steady their hands so they can do it themselves. So you want to always know how much and what kind of support a person prefers. Scooting over to page 17 now. Exercising power with rather than power over. Power over is the practice of fixing things as you see fit. It's kind of natural for us as caregivers and as human beings to want to fix things on the client's behalf. Try to resist the urge to do this without asking or making sure that it's what the client wants. I like to compare it to like the client's working on a puzzle and they're putting the pieces where they need to go. And there's like a piece of an eye of the tiger and you see it and you know where it goes and you're looking and the client's holding it and they're looking and they're looking and they're looking and you want to be like, oh, it right there, just put it right there. It's tempting to do that because you just want to fix it and make it easier on them. And some of us who are perfectionists and who are helpers by nature, it's so hard for us to stifle that aspect of our personality and just not take over the task for them and just, you know what, let me just do it for you. It seems like it's helpful, but it's only helpful in the short term. Yeah, it gets it done faster. But does it really help them in the long run? Does it help them when you're not there? Are you going to be with them every day, every hour for the rest of their lives? Not likely. So yeah, you might be able to help them now, but it's important to remember that they have to be able to do as much as they can on their own. And other caregivers might not be as effective at helping them as you are. And many of these people have more than one caregiver. So they'll have a level of help they're accustomed to from you that another caregiver may not be able to provide, which causes stress and which causes conflict. And then suddenly you've got problems because another caregiver is having trouble with that client. And any trouble with the client always bleeds into you. You know, if they have stress and anxiety and anger towards one person, then it can kind of like meld into you. And suddenly during your shift, they're getting angry and upset with you. And you're like, what did I do? You didn't do anything. You just helped too much. See what I'm saying? All right. So power with means that you support the client's autonomy and independence by asking them if they want assistance, how much, and what kind. All right? Do you need help eating? Or would you like me to just bring you your food, a spoon, and some napkins? You know? Do you need help with your medications? I can bring them to you. Or if you'd like, I can hold your hand steady while you take them. Just throw out some options there, especially during the honeymoon phase, the get to know you phase, the time where you're new and you haven't worked with the client yet. You don't really truly know what they need and what they're capable of on their own. That's the best time to be asking these open-ended questions. Okay? Once you find out what they need and you know what their baseline is or what's normal for them, it'll be easier and easier for you to sort of make these calls on your own and know what they need and know the help levels that they're going to need. Okay, we'll talk about the levels of assistance you'll be giving people later on. That's another topic, but we're getting there. Try not to think about sharing responsibilities as allowing them to do something or letting them do it. Power with is client-directed teamwork and decision support. Okay, so it's a good verbiage. And you're not letting them help you or you're not letting them feed themselves. You're empowering them to do it, right? Empowerment. Down now to building healthy relationships. Building authentic, healthy relationships with your clients helps make person-centered interaction possible. This doesn't mean becoming your client's best friend or doing whatever they want when they want it. You've got to maintain professional boundaries and consider your scope of practice. Work needs to be transparent, trustworthy, respectful, and solving problems in a constructive way. Listen first and be honest when responding about problem solving. This is important, and we are going to go into a little bit more about that in Module 3. All right, it's break time. See you in a minute. Okay, hey, welcome back. Now, we just spoke about building healthy relationships, and I just wanted to make sure that I covered one important thing. We mentioned boundaries, professional boundaries and things, and I want to make sure you understood that boundaries were something that the client and you are both supposed to honor. We talked a little bit about your boundaries before, where we say it's not a good idea to talk about these topics or bring up these things or push your beliefs or things. Those are the types of boundaries I'm talking about for you. Now, what if a client wants to push their boundaries or push their religion or their politics or their opinions about things onto you? Well, the client is allowed to do these things. I'm not saying you have to honor what they want you to do when they say you should vote for this person, or you should feel this way about this political topic, or you should feel this way about this, issue that's happening right now with the government or the world. Obviously, you don't have to adhere to their beliefs, but they have the right to sort of tell you about what they're feeling. Keep in mind, their social circle, in most cases, and especially with the people who are in total care or who are in situations where they don't have people that are coming to see them and to visit them, they have very little social interaction. And so you're about the only person they have to talk to about things that might be weighing on their minds or on their hearts. And oftentimes, as people do get older and they start to view the world a different way, they see things in more of a black and white perspective, a right or wrong. And they look at things as the way they are now versus the way they were before. And they sometimes have trouble reconciling how things have changed in society. So I'm not saying that, again, their position is correct, but I'm saying that they have the right to express their opinions and say what they have on their minds. And I'd rather you didn't take offense to it. I don't want you to get upset about their opinions because that's all they are. They're opinions. And they value your opinion. And of course, you have to value their opinion and they have to value yours. So it's kind of a two-way street. All right, we're going to talk a lot more about that in class with more examples and real world things. And I'm going to want to hear your take on this as well. Anyhow, back to the book. Remember, knowing is not enough. You must decide to act on the knowledge that you've acquired by asking the questions. So you can know what their preferences are, but if you don't act on them, it's not going to do you any good, right? Always pay attention to the support and the effect the support is having on the client. Consider what is working, what's not working. Adapt your care as your client's needs and preference change, and keep in mind that everyone's needs and preferences may change over time. Just like you're not the same person you were 3 years ago, neither will your client be the same person. And sometimes it'll even be more rapid fire than that. You could, 1 month to the next month, they may have different preferences, different ideals, different times they want to wake up, different foods they prefer. There's all kinds of ways people can change, even in a short amount of time. Sometimes we change our minds temporarily, and before providing support, reaffirm with your client. If their preferences and needs change, it's important to notify your supervisor so the service plan can be updated. Now, we say that, right? Their needs or their preferences change, and we notify the supervisor. But do we update the supervisor every time someone's preferences or needs change? No. It's not they like tuna instead of peanut butter, or they like to wake up at 11 instead of 10. You notify your supervisor or your case manager whenever you're concerned. Whenever it's a change that's taken place that you feel like it would be very beneficial for other members of the care team to be notified of this. You don't have to worry about notifying them of every little thing. Okay? So don't get too in your head about it. It's just about letting people know when something has changed that may be of a concern or would be beneficial for everyone else to know. All right, going down to the next section, talking about advocating for the person. Supporting a person includes advocating for them. As a caregiver, you spend a lot of time with your client and you can get to know them very well. You have an important role in helping to protect their health. And Module 5, we'll talk more about being a professional caregiver, so this all ties in later. Encourage your client to self-advocate for better care, better quality, better services, and advocate on their behalf when they ask you to. You might help them maintain control of their health services and make sure their voice is heard in team discussions. And make sure they're engaging in meaningful activities and work with them so that they're having the community activities that they value. Now, I keep saying this word, advocate. Well, what does that mean? Well, advocate basically just means to stand up for them, to speak up for them, or to give them the empowerment to do so for themselves. Now, why would you even need to do this? Can't they talk for themselves? Well, in some cases, no. Many times they may be shy, or they may be embarrassed or intimidated by talking to people or asking for things that they need. Because remember, a lot of folks that you'll be taking care of, they're already receiving a lot of care services. And they may be feeling like, I don't want to bother anyone by asking for more. Well, I really need a grab bar installed in my shower, but they just gave me a wheelchair and they put a ramp in my house and they did all these things just last month. And I don't want to trouble them. I don't want to bother them for another thing. I mean, some people are like, yeah, gimme. But not everyone's like that. Many people are like, I don't want to bother anybody. I'd rather not be, I don't want to make waves. So we have all kinds of different people. And as a caregiver, your job, in addition to all the other hats you're wearing, your job is to know when there's something that maybe they need to be advocating for. Maybe your client has 15 hours of care services a week, and that's not nearly enough to get everything done that they need. So maybe they need to contact their case manager and request for more hours. They might be scared to do this. They might be worried. They might be intimidated. And so maybe you could help them make the phone call. You could say something along the lines of, I'm finding that with 15 hours a week, we're just not ever able to get your laundry done, your shopping, and then there's no time for any outings or walks to the park like you like to do. I mean, we're taking care of all of the have-to needs, but we're not doing any of the want-to needs. And I'm sorry, but the want-tos are just as important as the have-tos, right? Social and mental and psychological well-being are just as important as the physical needs. So you have to make sure you got time for all those things. And if you don't have time, well, someone has to talk to that case manager and let them know that there's just not enough time in the day to get everything done that needs to be done for the well-being of this client. Maybe your client's not very good with words. Maybe they have trouble communicating effectively or putting into words what they want to say, and then you can offer to speak for them. You can sit down before the phone call and you can write down bullet points of what they want conveyed in the phone call. And then you can offer to make the phone call for them while they sit and listen. And then you can say the things that need to be said. And the case manager could ask the client simple yes or no questions in conjunction with the things you're saying. So there's all kinds of ways that you can help to advocate for the client. But remember, never push your advocacy on the client. Assume that they want to advocate for themselves until otherwise determined that they don't. Okay? All right, done with page 17. Let's flip over to 18. Wow. All right, so in summary of this little chapter, we've learned several concepts related to person-centered care. They're grouped into 3 broad categories. We're learning about people, we're valuing people, and we are supporting people. Did they spell valuing right? I feel like they misspelled valuing. Somebody tell me if they misspelled that. Someone in class tomorrow, tell me if they misspelled valuing. I'm curious. We encourage you to explore additional training opportunities as you grow professionally, and that you'll continue to think about these concepts. I hope that you'll actively choose to apply them to your daily caregiving practice. And on behalf of all of DSHS and us instructors, we salute you. We're proud of you, our person-centered caregivers, and proud of the service that you provide and will continue to provide for our needy and needed clients. Now, for this final part of this module, I'm not going to do any more talking. We're going to stop it here, but I want you to take the rest of this time to fill in the checkpoint, okay? Down here, this is a bunch of questions and answers that I want you to pause the video and answer these questions. It should take about 5 to 10 minutes. So go ahead and pause me, and when you're done pausing me, get this all done, fill this in, and then we're going to move together onto lesson 2. So I'll see you at lesson 2. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got your questions answered from lesson 1. Now we're going to scoot on over to lesson 2. You should be on page 19. And this chapter, or this lesson, is on honoring differences. Now, we've talked a little about this. We'll go into more detail now. The learning objective here is understanding how to provide culturally competent care and describing how cultural background, lifestyle, and practices and traditions can impact care, and using methods to determine and ensure that these are respected and considered when providing care. There's a whole slew of keywords here, so get ready. Remember what I told you about the keywords. These are words that likely you're going to see on the test. You may see something that says, this is the definition of this, A, B, C, or D. Or it might say true or false. The correct definition of this word is this. Or they might not even have a question about the keyword itself. They may simply use the keyword in something, saying, if you have a bias towards someone, that is a positive or negative, etc., and then you'd have to answer that. But you'd have to know what bias means in order to answer the question, right? So that's the keywords I'm talking about. All right, here's our keywords. We're going to be looking through them throughout the lesson. We've got the bias. A bias, a tendency, a trend, an inclination, feeling, or opinion that's not necessarily true. Examples are confirmation bias, which is where you look for evidence to support your opinion, and similarity bias, which is the desire to surround ourselves with people who are like us. Now, we'll talk more about bias in a minute, but is bias a bad thing? I got two schools of thought on that, and I hear different answers from different people because we've all lived different lives. So in class, I want you to be ready to talk to me about bias. Talk to me about any biases you have, any biases you've experienced in your life, things along those lines. Maybe why a bias could be good or why a bias could be bad. This is all for classroom time. All right, next one, cisgender. Cisgender is a person whose gender identity matches the sex assigned at birth. So basically someone whose sexual identity is what they were assigned at birth, okay? Their biological sex, if you will. Creed is a system of religious belief or faith. Culture, the language, customs, and practices of a specific group of people, which can include things like food, dress, religion, family relationship, roles, and celebrations and customs, things along those lines. Ethnicity is a grouping of people who share a common culture, religion, or language. And it's very easy to mix up ethnicity and culture. I'll kind of go into a little more detail later explaining the difference between the two so you can tell them apart. Gender expression, how a person's name, pronouns, clothing, haircut, behavior, voice, and or body characteristics express their gender. Okay? So you can be a specific gender, but you may express yourself as a different gender, you know? Gender identity, which is the person's internal, deeply held sense of their gender, meaning not biological, but internal, intrinsic. They can be biologically this, but they feel this. And so each of these has its own specific needs to be recognized and respected. Heritage, the traditions and cultures that we inherit. Intersex, these are people whose anatomy and our genetics show both male and female characteristics. Mindfulness, being aware of one's own thoughts, emotions, and experiences on a moment-to-moment basis. A good thing for caregivers to have. Okay? Race is a social division of people based on certain physical traits such as skin color. Religion is a system of beliefs, ceremonies, and rules used to worship a god or a group of gods. Rhetoric, language with a persuasive effect that often lacks sincerity or meaningful contact. Also pronounced rhetoric. Rhetoric, I'm not sure. Rhetorical question or rhetoric. We'll figure that one out later. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And there's sexual orientation, which is a person's enduring physical, romantic, and or emotional attraction to members of the same and or the opposite sex. Okay? So there's a lot of good keywords, and we'll kind of go through those in here. The overview of what we're looking at today. Honoring differences means respecting a client's culture, background, and individuality. Caregivers should work to become aware of their own biases and to take action to overcome them so they can provide equitable care. And equitable care is basically just being fair and honest and treating everybody equally. Or, as we say, be excellent to each other, right? Just be excellent to everyone. It doesn't matter what race or religion or culture or background or gender or whatever. It doesn't matter. Just be excellent to everyone and treat everyone well and treat everybody, and I'm not even saying treat them as you want to be treated either. I'm just saying just treat everyone well and don't expect anything back. Because I know, and this is speaking from experience, the universe has a way of working things out. If you treat people well, regardless of what you expect back from them, the universe has a way of making sure that things come back to you as well. Call it karma, call it fate, call it whatever you want to call it. But I've found in my life that that is a constant. Treating people well always yields good results for me and those around me. So I highly recommend it. All right, let's flip over to page 20. Ooh, that person's a puzzle, aren't they? Culturally appropriate care. A person's culture often shapes how they see the world. It contributes to their knowledge, preferences, and beliefs, and it can affect choices about food, clothing, spirituality, and communication. Providing culturally appropriate care can also help clients live in a meaningful and fulfilling way, because if they feel their culture is being honored, then they themselves feel like they're being honored. Okay? You can really, really drag somebody down by bad-mouthing their culture, because someone's culture is something that's very important to them. And if you badmouth their culture, you're going to drag them down and make them feel like less of a person. Be careful of that. Let's see here. What else? To care for clients in a culturally appropriate way, the caregivers must respect and understand each client's individuality. They have to understand how their own cultures, environments, and identities can influence their beliefs and behaviors when caring for a client. Because your own culture and your own beliefs can impact the way you provide care. There are certain things that you hold intrinsically true because of the culture you were raised in. And if your client differs from those things, you may have trouble reconciling doing things the way your client prefers because your culture specifically says, no, that's not right. Or, ooh, they're way off on that. I shouldn't be doing this. And sometimes you'll come to what I call a crisis of faith or a crisis of conscience, where there's something that you feel fundamentally wrong about. I'll give you an example. Let's say your client uses medical marijuana. Okay? Now, legally, there's nothing wrong with that. Marijuana is legal in this state as of right now that I'm making this video. Could change, who knows? But as of right now, using medical marijuana is legal. And some people want to partake in it. Some people use it and they do, whatever. However, there's a number of religions that find the use of drugs and or alcohol or controlled substances to be wrong, bad, prohibited, illegal in that culture, if you will. And so if your client says, hey, I need you to go to the store and go get me a bottle of vodka, and I need you to go to the pot store and go get me some marijuana, and I need you to go get me some cigarettes, and they're asking you to go get all these things that you, as a culturally competent person, do not feel comfortable being around, buying, using, handling, or being seen with. I mean, there's, let's say you're part of a religious group that really frowns upon the use of these things. And you're walking in the store and you're carrying a bag full of vodka and a thing of this and that. You got all these things. And somebody that knows you sees you. And they don't say anything. They just see you carrying these things and walking around. What's that person going to think of you? What's that person going to go behind your back? Oh, I saw this person at the store. They were buying all these things. And they don't know your story. All they know is they saw you at the store buying a bunch of stuff that, according to your culture, you're not supposed to be dealing with. That can put you in a sticky spot, can't it? So there's it's something that has to be sort of figured out on your part as to what your comfort level is as well. You as a caregiver are under no obligation to handle or deal with or interact with things that you, as part of your culture, do not feel comfortable with or are basically forbidden or prohibited from interacting with. All right? So remember, you have rights too. You can say yes or no to these things, but in all things, pick and choose your battles. Okay? Don't say no to everything, but pick and choose the things you need to say no to. All right, so that's a good little place to stop there. All right, we're going to pick up on identity and individuality. Go ahead and pause the video, and I'll come right back in a moment.